My name is Jerm. This is Jerm Warfare, the battle of ideas.
Zoë Harcombe, thank you for joining me in the trenches.
Thank you for having me.
I love chatting to you because we speak about diet, and it's probably the most important thing.
Yeah, I think it goes with some other things. So I think if you eat really well and you're sedentary and you don't have purpose in life and you don't laugh and you don't have joy and you don't have friends and you don't sleep very well, it's not going to go great. I think it's part of a suite of lifestyle things that we need to do, but it's a really important one.
So I have a few vices, and I know that you have some views on them, but I want to ask you just right off the bat, what do you know about coffee?
I love coffee. I did a review of it. I mean, it's not right at the front of my head, but because you know what I've been doing for 15 years, I take an academic article, makes headlines saying, you know, what's one that's come out today? Red meat is worse than smoking for breast cancer. I mean, I haven't even looked at that one yet, and already I'm rolling my eyes. So that's the kind of thing that I do. So doing that over 15 years, I've looked at pretty much everything. I've looked at fasting, I've looked at dairy, I've looked at coffee, I've looked at alcohol. And I can remember when I looked at coffee, and they are association studies. They don't do the randomised controlled trials where they say, right, you're going to be randomised, you guys have coffee and you guys don't have coffee, and we're going to see what happens. Because just nothing really would happen during a trial. You have to follow people over quite a long period of time and see what happens, and then that's only an association study, and then you might find an association, then you should go away and test that in a randomised controlled trial. So I don't see any issues with coffee. I mean, I think if you get the jitters from caffeine and you're having too much caffeine, your body will tell you and you'll get jittery, so just pull back a bit. And if you don't sleep so well, then have less caffeine, or maybe have it earlier in the day and then stop at lunchtime or whatever. But I'm not where some of these carnivore guys are. I won't name any names, but, oh, I think it's a toxin and I think it's out to get you kind of thing. It's like, it's one of the great joys in life. You know, that first cup of coffee in the morning, it's just such a joy. Don't make that bad. Don't take that away from me. Enough already.
The thing, though, is that it's a bit of an enigma because nobody really knows what to make of it. It's, you know, in some sports areas, they classify it as a drug. I think, like, for example, in cycling, you can't have coffee before a race.
Caffeine is a powerful drug. Of that, there is no doubt. I don't know where it spanned, and in particular sports, I didn't know that. I actually understood that it was one of the few legal kind of drugs that you could take that could actually enhance performance. So I know there was quite a funny story.
Well, maybe it's changed.
Yeah, maybe, and maybe it's different in different countries, and, you know, I'm just not going to claim to know something that I don't know. I do remember quite a funny story, and the England football team were due to go over, and they were playing a European country, like one that they should have beaten sort of 13-0 kind of thing. And they went over, and apparently all the team had taken caffeine, which they typically do before a football match, so they're all really pumped and psyched and all the rest of it. And then apparently the pitch was, you couldn't play on the pitch. It was either frozen or it was waterlogged or something, which obviously this local team knew. And I'm thinking, you know, it wasn't Luxembourg, but it was a country that small kind of thing. They obviously knew this was going to happen. So all the England football players were like so wired with this coffee, they couldn't sleep at night then. And then it's like, oh, while you're here, we might as well just sort of play the match tomorrow or something like that. And of course, then they'd had no sleep, and then they weren't going to be in a very good state. So I remember reading about that and thinking that's actually quite funny. But yeah, it's a powerful drug. It's a stimulant. If you have caffeine regularly and then you don't have it the next day, and you've been, let's say I have a coffee every morning when I wake up, which might be 5 o'clock, 5:30, 6 o'clock or whatever. If I have a lie-in, I will get woken up with a headache. And I only have one coffee a day. And that's my body saying, I need the caffeine now. I was expecting the caffeine, and you're now getting caffeine withdrawal, and that's what the headache is. So go get me some more caffeine. And I just go and have a cup of coffee. I don't think, you know, that's something I don't really want to happen again, so I'm just going to stop drinking coffee. No, I wouldn't do that.
But does it add to weight gain?
Okay, so that's quite an interesting one, because it's a stimulant. So it's having a little bit of a similar effect on the body to the whole sort of flight, fright fight mechanism. So it's giving you a stimulant. So what it's kind of doing in the body is not dissimilar to what would happen if you saw a wild animal and suddenly had this sort of shock and, right, I need to do something. So it's getting the body primed to do something, which is why it will enhance performance. It will enhance athletic performance. It enhances mental performance. You can tell that. I mean, a lot of people say, don't even talk to me until I've had my first coffee in the morning. So it is definitely doing that. And to that extent, it will be stimulating glucagon. So if you just have a black coffee, for example, so you've got no calories with it, you've got no milk, you've got no cream, you're just having the black coffee, then it will probably stimulate glucagon. And glucagon, of course, is the sort of antidote, the equal and opposite hormone to insulin. So whereas insulin is taking glucose out of the bloodstream, glucagon is putting glucose back into the bloodstream. So there is an argument, and there was a book called The OMG Diet, which was all the rage about 10 years ago or something. And one of the things that it was telling people to do was to have coffee on an empty stomach in the morning. The idea being that it was going to stimulate the body into this alert state and release glucagon, and that is actually the act of breaking down body fat in the body. But you've then got the other things that will happen. So the body says, okay, now we didn't see the wild animal, so I've put all this stuff into the bloodstream that kind of I didn't really need. And you might, particularly with the caffeine as well, you might get a bit jittery and a bit shaky. Some people they feel they're having a little bit of a low blood glucose episode. So maybe the body puts some glucose in, and then when the body says, okay, we didn't need that to fight the wild animal, then insulin, of course, has to kick in to say, okay, we're now above the 4 grams of glucose, so we need to start taking that out. So it can stimulate a bit of a sort of swing and roundabout kind of thing. And where the body then settles down or ends up, I don't know. So yes, it can have an impact on blood glucose levels. It can have an impact on what your body is doing to try to regulate blood glucose levels, and it can therefore have a little bit of an impact on weight. But I mean, it's really not gonna, in the whole scheme of what you put in your mouth and how non-sedentary you are during the day, you know, the idea that this diet, this was one of their big 7 pillars or something. Another one was like have a cold bath in the morning. I mean, that's me out straight away, apart from I don't need to diet. But, you know, I'm not having a cold bath, and I'm not having a black coffee or whatever, and not having my breakfast. I mean, it was all just a bit bonkers. But yeah, it does have some impact on the body in different ways.
Well, I break that apart by adding cream to my coffee.
And that's great. So the body's going to carry on doing what it was going to do. It's going to stop you having a headache if you have caffeine regularly. It's going to say, great, you've had your regular hit of caffeine. It's going to make you more alert. It's going to make you better able to work. If it's part of your routine, the body's like, great, I was expecting that. I have one of those at 7 o'clock in the morning. Happy days, on I go. It's about finding out what works for you. I mean, I've been at a carnivore conference, or I didn't realise it was a carnivore conference, a kind of keto conference, and there were some non-keto people there, like me, and some keto people there, and some carnivore people there. And the carnivore people are kind of, oh, it's a plant, it's out to get you, it's a toxin, and all the rest of it. I'm not in that camp at all. That's too extreme. That's too extreme.
And it's boring.
It's really boring, and it's obsessive. And back to putting diet in context of having purpose and friends and joy and laughter and good sleep and all the rest of it. The obsession is not good. You know, if you think you're having a healthy diet, but it's basically because you're eating meat and eggs and a bit of salmon every now and again and nothing else, and you're religious about that, or you're eating within this window, and if some really interesting people invite you for dinner, it's outside your window, so you don't want to go, you really need to reassess your priorities. That's not what we're on earth about. It's just not.
Tim Noakes has often said to me that the word diet is not the correct word to use because it implies a short-term goal.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. I mean, diet was very much sort of something you went on and then you went off. And I think what people realised when they did these low-fat, low-calorie diets, you go on one, yes, you will lose weight, but then your body starts working against you, and it's not very long before you're not losing weight anymore, and then you have to eat less and less and less and less to get the kind of the results that you were getting when you first started, and you're just in this terrible vicious circle of, sort of what do I do? So you can't keep that going. So I would often say to people, because I've worked with people trying to lose weight over quite a long period of time, if you're about to embark on something that you can't sustain, don't even embark on it. There's just no point. Why is there any point? So you go on it and then you come off it and you regain everything, and you've actually slowed your metabolism, and you've lost lean tissue and you've lost muscle, and you've become a bit obsessed with food, and you've developed some really bad habits, and maybe you've stopped eating healthy foods like meat and oily fish because they're high in calories. You've done it like a million really, really bad things, and you couldn't keep it up because your body is not going to leave you in a calorie deficit situation for any period of time, certainly not longer than about 6 months, and then you're in a worse place than before you started. So, sit down and be grown up with yourself and say, right, what can I achieve? What are my goals, and what am I prepared to do to achieve those goals? And you might say, I'm not prepared to give up red wine. I'm not prepared to give up dark chocolate. I'm not prepared to give up a dinner invite if I get one, and I'm not going to have any rules when I go out to dinner. So I've got to be able to do something that lets me just be completely flexible every now and again. I don't want to eat within a 6-hour window. Make a bargain with yourself. What are you prepared to do? And if you're not prepared to do anything, and yet you want to look like, I don't know, Sydney Sweeney or whatever, that's probably not going to work. Or Brad Pitt if you're a bloke. You are going to have to put in a bit of effort to get a bit of return. But write a contract with yourself. What are you prepared to do for what are you prepared to get back? And if you can't keep something up, then just don't even start it. There's no point.
I think Brad is like 60 years old and he looks really good still.
Yeah, or RFK Jr. or whatever.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
looks really, really good. I think he's over 70, isn't he? So all of your listeners probably are going to be under 70. It's like, yeah, you aspire to look that good. What are you prepared to do to look that good? Because I'm sure he has a cup of coffee and a glass of wine. I hope so anyway. Otherwise he'd be a bit sad.
So, I mean, often we talk about losing weight, but I know somebody who got very stressed out over a space of a few months and lost a lot of weight, ate badly, all that kind of thing. How do you pick up weight?
Right, my best tip for gaining weight, you're going to need to eat more than your body needs, but that alone isn't necessarily enough. And you still need to eat real food. You still need to eat healthy stuff. So I would never say to that person, maybe somebody's had cancer treatment or something and then they're trying to regain weight or whatever. It's like, no, never go to the place of eating junk and all the stuff that is just bad for you. But the single best thing that I found for gaining weight, and also the converse for losing weight, is about what I call the mixing rule, or the no mixing rule. So when I started studying nutrition, and I mean studying it because nobody teaches you this at school, so I'm this curious, nerdy, logical person or whatever, so I go kind of looking at food, and then I realised one day, it's really interesting. When you look at real food, nature puts it into groups. And when you realise sort of protein is in everything, that's one discovery. Protein's in everything other than sucrose and oils. It's like, okay, that's interesting. I didn't know that. There's not much in lettuce, but there is some protein in lettuce. And then, of course, there's a lot of protein in a chicken breast or eggs or whatever. But then you realise that nature naturally provides carb proteins or fat proteins, and not so much any combination thereof. So your carb proteins are fruit, vegetables, grains and legumes. So it's things that vegans would eat. And then your fat proteins are meat, fish, eggs and dairy, things that vegans wouldn't eat. Now, really rarely in nature, she puts carb, fat and protein all in good measure in the same food. And that's basically nuts and seeds. And whole milk has got, reasonable amount of fat, reasonable amount of carb, reasonable amount of protein, but basically it's sort of nuts and seeds in the natural world. And if you've ever stood next to nuts at a cocktail party and you start having them, you'll notice that you just can't stop having them, because it's that fat carb combo that just doesn't happen in the real world. So if I sat you down and said, right, I want you to just eat butter on its own, you would have a limit. And if I said, right, I just want you to eat bread on its own, you'd have a limit. The minute I say you can have bread and butter or cheese and biscuits, you've got no limit. Or baked potatoes with, you know, butter and cheese on them. I mean, oh, melted cheese on baked potato, man, that is so good. But that carb-fat combo doesn't happen in the natural world. It happens in the fake food world. So the fake food manufacturers, every combination they're offering you, cakes, biscuits, even crisps, they put sugar and carbohydrate in crisps, and they also put the fat and the oil. So that's what we find irresistible. And that is therefore the way if you want to gain weight. So I still say don't eat the crisps and all the junk, but mix your fats and your carbs. So have potatoes with your steak. Have rice with your fish, have porridge with your cream, you know, because oats are a natural single ingredient food. They're fine. They're not cornflakes or all bran or anything like that. You know, they're a proper cereal. Have that bread and butter, have those cheese and oat cakes and whatever. So mix your fats and your carbohydrates, because you will be able to eat a lot more. You won't reach that point of, oh, I'm not interested in the butter anymore. And it's just a fantastic way of gaining weight, because what the body will say is, right, if ever I see a carbohydrate, I want to take that for fuel. That's the easiest thing for me to get the fuel from. And I'd quite like to be able to store some fat, because the body is always trying to store something for later on, because we're hardwired to store food for later on, because that's how we stay survived. So you have your porridge and cream, and the body's like, great, I'm going to take the glucose from the porridge, I'm going to need to get some out of the bloodstream, but I'm only going to pack it away as glycogen. If you don't eat for a few hours, I'm going to be shipping it back into the bloodstream so that we can use it. And hey, by the way, I wanted to store the cream for later on, and I can store cream if I've got insulin, because that's my hormone that helps me store stuff. And I've got insulin because you ate porridge at the same time as the cream. So happy days. I've got the perfect fat storing environment. And conversely, if you don't want the perfect fat storing environment, keep your carbs and your fats separate. Kind of eat in the groups that nature has provided for you.
And eat a whole pile of eggs every day.
Well, if you like them, yeah. I'm not like a massive fan of eggs. I just not. You know, I would prefer yogurt, for example, Greek yogurt. If scrambled eggs in butter, they're pretty nice every now and again. An omelette with cheese, that's quite nice every now and again. But my hubby eats bacon and eggs for breakfast every morning. I kind of look over and I'm like, no, I don't fancy that. Not first thing in the morning. That's just too much.
What's the difference between Greek and Bulgarian yogurt?
I don't know. I've never had Bulgarian yogurt. We get Greek yogurt in the supermarket. I imagine it's just thick yogurt that you get in a Bulgarian supermarket. In Greece, I mean, obviously it's to die for. Local Greek yogurt is, you know, like you can stand a spoon up in it. It's so thick. It's so high fat. We get some pretty good yogurt in the supermarkets in the UK. I've been to conferences in the US, and one of the first things I do is to go out to a local supermarket to get some yogurt in the fridge, so that if I need something, because of crazy hours of conferences, I've got some good fat protein in the fridge. And I'm looking all the way through the cabinets for something that's more than about 7% fat. In the UK, we can get 10% fat quite easly, but they're not so good.
We in South Africa have a lot of biltong. I mean, it's part of our culture. What do you have in the UK? Jerky, I think, would be the equivalent.
Yeah, beef jerky. Yeah, you can get biltong. And I know people who make their own. So they'll get sort of very thinly sliced meat, heavily salted, and just sort of leave it somewhere.
It's not the same thing, just so that we're clear. It's not the same.
No, but they're kind of trying to make the notion of dried, very salty meat something that you can just snack on or have for a meal or whatever.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. So, I mean, it's essentially just meat with fat on it, so it's obviously a good snack.
Yeah. Having said that, you shouldn't be snacking, ideally. If you have a bit of a chaotic lifestyle and you're doing a podcast 1 minute and you don't know when you're next going to be able to get a meal and you just feel you need a bit more fuel, then yeah, fine, reach for something. But ideally, most days we're able to work to some kind of a routine of, we have breakfast at a certain time and we have dinner at a certain time, and we also like lunch, although that's not the biggest meal. Breakfast and dinner are definitely the sort of the biggest two. And if we know we're having a later meal, we did last night, we were out with friends, we would normally have dinner about 4:30, 5 o'clock. If we're at home, we knew last night it was going to be 7:30, 8:30, maybe even. Then we might reach for some cheese mid-late afternoon just to make sure we're not starving hungry at the point the meal comes. But ideally we shouldn't be needing to reach for something. It kind of, if you need something in between, there's something wrong with your meals. Your meals weren't satiating you or giving you what you needed. So best not to snack if we can.
Where did this idea of multiple meals a day come from? I mean, breakfast, lunch, dinner.
Dietitians and the fake food industry. And if you look at the fabulous work of Belinda Fettke, you'll see how closely aligned they are. As in cereal companies in all the countries I've looked at, UK, South Africa, America, New Zealand, Australia, the cereal companies and dietitians are very closely aligned, you know, gold partner level, closely aligned, so that then the dietitians are saying, oh, you should have cereal for breakfast and then a snack mid-morning and then a nice sort of low-fat lunch and then maybe a snack mid-afternoon and then a nice sort of carb-based meal in the evening and then a snack before bed and all the rest of it. And then they wonder why we have an epidemic of obesity and type 2 diabetes. I mean, it's just the most disastrous advice you could ever give a human being, both in how often you're eating and what you're eating. So just like throw out all of that advice. Don't go low fat, don't go low calorie, don't graze, don't eat little and often, don't favour carbohydrates over real animal foods. Eat good meals, eat decent meals so that you're not feeling hungry in between.
What about the idea that there are levels? I mean, most of my friends drink Diet Coke or Coke Zero.
Not so sure, actually. I mean, if you looked at the evidence against sucrose versus the evidence against aspartame, I don't think aspartame, which is the main sweetener in those kind of drinks, I don't think it fares very well. There's a passage in my obesity book, which was written back in 2009, where I look at some evidence against aspartame. And of course, if you look at the evidence that's been prepared by the aspartame companies, the fake food companies, it's like, oh, nothing to see here, this is all fine. And there's sort of, one study, I think it was, that had been done by fake food companies, whatever, non-diet drink companies. And of course it's like, this is potentially carcinogenic, it's, a little bit cause for concern, needs looking into further and all the rest of it. So, no, they'll come up and say it's okay. Diet Coke, you can get caffeine-free Diet Coke, but if you don't, then you're getting caffeine. So we're back to where we were at the top of the show, which is caffeine is going to have a stimulant, it might impact glucagon, it might then in turn impact insulin. You don't want to be doing that several times a day because you're going to bring on type 2 diabetes at some point. Anything that is not water between meals, you need to give some serious thought to. So coffee with caffeine is going to have an impact. Things that aren't going to have an impact are basically water, herbal teas generally, unless they're kind of green tea. Green tea's got a caffeine content, but if you're looking at things like peppermint or chamomile or making your own tea from herbs that you've got from the garden or whatever, then you're okay. But no, Diet Coke, you've got to think caffeine, you've got to think aspartame, you've got to think the body registers the sweetness. The body doesn't know this was just a sweetener. You have the Diet Coke and the body thinks, wow, that's really sweet. You must have had, 3 or 4 teaspoons of sucrose, so I better get ready to deal with that. So the body starts then saying, right, okay, and then where's the sugar? I released insulin ready to mop up all of that sugar, and then you didn't have all of that sugar. So there are also studies showing that sweeteners have a similar impact on the body to caloric sugar, because the body just doesn't know the difference. How can it know? At the point it goes in your mouth, carbohydrates start being digested in the mouth. So the minute you put a carbohydrate in fact, it's even earlier than that. Walk around a supermarket, go past the bread counter, and they pump out the smell, which is to try to get you to buy bread. Now, you can be literally salivating as you're walking around the supermarket, because the supermarket knew how to stimulate your body to make it realise that there's carbohydrates potentially on the way. So you're like a Pavlov dog. You can be salivating before you've even put the bread in your mouth. The minute you do put the bread in your mouth, then your salivary enzymes are really kicking in, because they're going to start digesting the carbohydrate, and then digestion of protein and fat goes on elsewhere in the body.
I know somebody who is very fat and is pre-diabetic as a result, and decided to buy diabetic snacks, diabetic food. And I'm looking at this thinking, what?
Oh, that's really sad. It's like when people have gluten intolerance and then they buy all these gluten-free products. It's like your body is really just trying to tell you something right now. What it's trying to say is, can you eat some real food, please? And that diabetic, the body is just trying to say, look, can you just eat some real food, please? And, I'm sure I've shared my sort of 3 rules before. Number 1, eat real food. Number 2, choose that real food for the nutrients it provides. That's what that poor diabetic body is trying to say, and what is that real food that has the nutrients that we need? It's red meat, it's oily fish, it's eggs, it's whole dairy. Yeah, you can have some salads and vegetables and berries and dark chocolate and wine and all the rest of it, but it's your meat, fish, eggs and dairy that the body really wants to get the nutrients that it needs in the form that it needs them. And then rule number 3, don't eat all the time, like maximum 3 times a day, unless you're trying to gain weight, and then you can sort of break the rules.
Raw milk. What do you know about that?
Not a great deal. I know it's almost certainly really good for us, because anything that they try to ban and stop us eating is almost certainly really good for us. When I can get it, and I can get it sometimes, there's a farm springs up near Wales, and then we suddenly hear they've got raw milk or whatever, and then we can stock up. It freezes just fine, so you can freeze it and then take it out of the freezer. But I get through quite a lot of milk from the coffee that I drink in the morning, and putting it in kefir, which we have every day as well, both me and hubby. So we can get through a lot of milk. So I need a really local supply to be able to drink it all the time. If I could drink it all the time, if I could access it all the time, I would. Absolutely convinced that it's going to be more natural, better for us. But there's parts of the US, I think, where they've legislated you're not even allowed to consume it. It must be the pasteurised version. And every now and again they say, oh, there's somebody who's been made really ill by drinking raw milk or something, just to kind of like remind you, oh, don't go off and do anything like that. That's what sort of crazy health conscious people go and try and do. So anything they demonise just tells me it's got to be good for you.
Yes, but Zoe, trust the experts.
What, the ones that tell you to eat 5 a day, and fibre, and fat is bad, and carbs are good, and COVID's going to wipe out the planet, and, take this jab, we've tested it, and it's super safe and effective, and don't worry about myocarditis, especially don't worry about that, even though we knew that one even before it was in arms. No, I mean, that's why I rumbled COVID, because one of the first wake-ups for me, I guess, was public health. The minute you start looking at it, we're starting to get an obesity epidemic. This is what I was thinking around the 90s. It's like, okay, I'm literally watching people around me get larger and larger, and more people are going on these calorie-controlled diets, and they're starving. And then they binge because they're just so hungry. They can't sort of stop the binge, and then they feel really bad, and they're told they're greedy fat pigs, and you're only obese because you're a greedy fat pig, and you're lazy actually as well. And all you need to do is just to eat less and do more, and then everything will be okay. And I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, people want to be slim more than they want anything in the world. You say to them, do you want to be slim, or do you want to marry David Beckham or something? And they say, well, I want to be slim. Do you want to win the lottery or be slim for life? I want to be slim for life. It's just like something so strongly that people want to achieve. And yet, if it's really just as simple as just eat less and do more, then why wasn't it achievable? And you suddenly realise that eat less, do more drives you down the route of eating the wrong things. It makes you hungry, starts your body working against you. And from that, it's kind of like, so where does this calorie theory come from? And why do they say eat 5 a day? And why do they say this? And why do they say that? And then just everything crumbles in front of you. There's just no evidence for any of it. And then you just start looking at everything else. And it's like, well, is there any evidence for 14 units of alcohol. Women are supposed to, most you're supposed to drink in a week for women. And for men, it's 21 units. Is there any evidence for that? No. One of the guys on the committee just said, oh, it was a number we just picked out of the air. It just, 5 a day was a number that was just picked out of the air. 8 glasses of water, a number that's picked out of the air. I just don't trust them. I trust them on absolutely nothing health. If they told me, sleep 8 hours at night, I'd probably say, all right, that's now rubbish. I obviously only need to sleep 4 or 10. But anything they say, it's like almost the opposite is true every single time.
Just to be fair, I wouldn't want to marry David Beckham.
Yeah, I mean, that was in his heyday or whatever, and mostly it was women at that time who were trying to lose weight. So,
well, if I did marry him, my wife would leave me.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I don't like tattoos anyway, so it would never interest me. I don't like to. Have you got tattoos? Have I just upset you now?
No. I've got.
Okay,
no,
great.
I'm still part of. I'm still part of the resistance.
Yeah. I know. I don't.
Everybody has tattoos these days.
Yeah. No, I don't like tattoos. No, I don't.
A big part of my life is GERD, and this has been an ongoing battle.
Have you tried apple cider vinegar?
In what way? Just like drinking it as it is?
Yeah.
No.
Okay,
Because hold on. Wait, hold on. Before you go any further, a big debate, and I remember seeing a doctor, and he said, "Look, you need more acid in your body."
Yes.
But other doctors have said, "No, you've got too much acid."
So your stomach is the most acidic place on earth. It's kind of like battery acid level or whatever. So in what universe does it make sense to try to make it less acidic? Because it's got to be at that level of acidity. So when I was talking earlier on about when you consume carbohydrates, they start being digested in the mouth with your salivary enzymes. Protein is mainly digested in the stomach. That's where it's broken down. And then fat is sort of lower down the digestive system in the intestines. So the stomach has to be, you're breaking down protein, which is a pretty serious structure, into the amino acids that we need, the essential amino acids and other non-essential amino acids. So your stomach is an incredibly acidic environment. So there is just no logic to me that says trying to make it less acidic, which is what these omeprazoles and these antacids and Rennie and protein pump and all the rest of it, they're trying to make it less acidic. There is no logic to me whatsoever that says that's going to be a good idea. I'm going to send you a video after this by a health influencer who I must have come across about 15 years ago, and he's a guy called Sean Croxton. And he used to, even before Instagram and TikTok were a thing, he was making little videos on YouTube, and he went by the name of Underground Wellness. And he does this little 10-minute video about acid reflux, GERD, heartburn, and all the rest of it, and the logic of it being too little acid versus the logic of it being not enough acid. And hopefully by the end of that 10 minutes, you think, how did I ever take anything that would try to lower my acid? And then you start having apple cider vinegar.
Right. So in terms of eating real food, what real food is high in acid?
Well, food is what food is. It's not necessarily that. I think you probably didn't have an acidic enough environment to start with, and then if you've gone the kind of omeprazole lowering the stomach acid route, you've had your body starting to fight against you. So ideally what would have happened then...
I did that for like 15 years.
Oh, crikey. Okay, so yeah, it's going to take a bit of time to reverse things. But we've had friends who've come with this, and they've been on, the doctor has gone, I can think of a very dear friend, very close, quite recently, had gone to the doctor with this, and doctor was, straight for the omeprazole, and it's like, oh, you'll be on them for life. And you really don't want to look at the association between those tablets and stomach cancer. That is going to be even though it's just an association, it's a number that's going to scare you. So you really don't want to be going that route. And we said to him, look, would you think about not cashing that prescription and maybe just going the apple cider vinegar route? He was infinitely better within days. And
so what? Do you just drink it in a glass? How much of it?
So you can buy apple cider vinegar, Mix it to a sort of level that works for you, or there might be some instructions on the side of it. My hubby, every now and again, he sort of feels that he has a need to settle his stomach or make it more acidic or whatever. So he'll put maybe a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar in a nice glass and then put half the rest of the glass with some sparkling water. So you're kind of turning it into a pretty sharp apple juice kind of thing. And I mean, I'm not saying it's the most pleasant thing in the world. I mean, I go near the cup thinking, oh, there's a bit of water left over, you know, great, I'll swig that off, and I go near it, oh, okay, that's his apple cider vinegar. Yeah, and it's, you know, it causes quite an aversion in your smell when you actually just smell it. But if you can get past that and say, okay, look, I just need to do this because it's going to sort out my GERD. And the two things that I think are best for stomach health is kefir, however you pronounce it. First thing in the morning on an empty stomach, great to make your own grains, make your own kefir and have a glass of that first thing on the empty stomach, and then have your breakfast. And then Andy tends to have sort of apple cider vinegar probably later on in the afternoon, maybe before dinner. I don't think there's any great religious time of day that he takes it. You know, if he might be feeling a little bit like he needs it, you know, he'll have some in the evening or in the morning, just sort of any time that he's thinking, oh, you know, maybe I should have a little bit now. Or then he'll just get in the habit of having some, because I'll find him a new brand and he's like, oh, I'll try that, that looks fun. And just never has any problems. There's no kind of acid reflux or gurgly tummy or problem. You just got to, again, do the opposite of what you're being told to do.
Okay, so an obvious trigger is sugar. Why is that?
You may be affecting, I mean, you probably be affecting the acidity of the stomach at some level. I mean, certainly sugar has more impact on glucose in the bloodstream generally, but it is also going down into the digestive system. So it's sort of trundling along with the other things that you're eating. So yeah, it may be a trigger just for that reason. It may be feeding, okay, here's another thought off the top of my head. It's almost certainly feeding bad bacteria in your gut. There you go. So it's going to be feeding things like Candida albicans. This whole book's been written about Candida albicans, the yeast syndrome. Could yeast be your problem? When people have quite a carby diet, which quite often comes with people who've been dieting, so they've gone low fat, which is inevitably high carb, or they don't think about the quality of what they're eating, they're just thinking about the calories. You know, I went through a period of calorie counting when I was a teenager. I used to get like a packet of these fruit gums, like gummy bears or whatever, and 100 calories, and I could just kind of chew on them through an afternoon. So I was just dripping glucose into my bloodstream all afternoon. You know, lucky I didn't end up with type 2 diabetes. But they were only 100 calories, and hey, they would stop me eating other things all afternoon. The fact that they had no nutrients whatsoever and were probably feeding the bad guys in my gut. And if you look at the other things that come along when you've got a gut flora imbalance, particularly when Candida has taken hold and you don't have the sort of lactobacillus and acidophilus and all the good guys to counterbalance it, you can get all sorts of symptoms. You can get brain fog, you can get tiredness, fatigue, irritability, get up and go has got up and gone, bloating, wind, constipation, diarrhea. Your gut is the second brain of the body. You know, if your gut health is not good, your whole body is going to be feeling it.
But you can counter all of that with diet. You don't need medication.
I don't think so. No. I mean, I certainly would never, ever, ever go the omeprazole route. If I developed acid reflux, I'd do exactly what hubby is doing. I'll send you, as I say, that Sean Croxton video. Kefir really does help because it's just such a fantastic amount of all the good guys, all the gut flora. I mean, it really is, you know, it's going to take you to a sort of step change level. But what else has that if you don't want to make your own kefir or get some from the supermarket? Natural live yoghurt. So look for the stuff that says natural live yoghurt. Look on the label where it says contains acidophilus, lactobacillus. Those are the kind of good guys that you're looking for. Blue cheese. Naturally fermented. I know, I don't like it either. Naturally fermented food, so pickled food. Again, we're back to vinegar and vinegary food. So when you're having a salad, consider putting some kind of vinegar on it. Red wine vinegar, olive oil and vinegar, maybe balsamic. Although there is sugar sometimes in balsamic, it can be quite sweet because it's grape based. My mum used to toss lettuce in oil and vinegar, just your natural like chip shop vinegar. She must have known something that would have been passed down by her mum.
You said red wine vinegar, but I'll add red wine.
Well, it probably does help, actually. That's probably why I don't like the taste of red wine, because I put it to my mouth and it smells like Andy's apple cider vinegar. It smells...
No.
I know, I can't come and hang out with you and Nick Hudson, can I?
No, how can you say no to wine?
I can be the driver. You see, I'm so handy. We had a lovely dinner last night. I drove home. Andy's asleep in the front seat. I get us home at 1 o'clock in the morning. He's had an hour's sleep. I'm the one that's got to be, There's some benefits to having a wifey that doesn't drink, trust me.
But it also sucks if you're the only one drinking wine.
He doesn't seem to mind. He doesn't mind. He doesn't mind. He's kind of got used to it now. He has got used to it. Yeah, I'd like to be able to share a bottle of wine with him, but I just don't like the taste, so it is what it is.
You haven't tried, I don't think you've tried all the wines.
Quite often. He had the guys we were with last night. This guy is a real wine buff. He invests in wine. He knows his wine. Whenever we go round there, Andy knows he's in for a treat. This is not even sort of Chateauneuf de Pape or whatever. This is stuff that, is the weekly shop kind of expense. And some of it is extraordinary, and he presents it in this beautiful glass. So Andy had this last night, and I always like to have a little sniff. I always like to sort of swill it around and kind of, see what they're drinking. The warmth that came off this wine last night, it was like somebody had put a hairdryer up my nose. And it just smelled warm and smooth and all the rest of it. And my friend Neil is like, oh, would you like a glass? It's like, no, because I wouldn't like it. Okay, I'll try it. And then I go to taste it and I'm like, oh, it's horrible. Why would you do that? Oh, it's horrible. Give me more chocolate mousse. I don't want any more of that red wine stuff.
Do you think the Vikings 1,000 years ago were healthier than what we are today?
Oh, I don't know. I think they had infections, didn't they? They didn't have antibiotics. I think they probably had some...
Well, I'm referring to diet.
Oh, diet. Oh, yeah. What did they eat? Just like animals, anything they could catch. Any planty stuff was seasonal. So you'd have nuts in the autumn, you'd have berries in the autumn, fruits in the autumn. That's about it. And the rest of the time it was whatever you could catch and kill and preserve. Or there was this sort of, if you can't preserve the meat, then you've just got to eat a lot now, and then you're not going to eat for a wee while. But you've got to have this ability to be able to store fat and then to unstore fat. And we don't kind of respect that very much at the moment either. We just want to be the same weight all the time. So we're fighting against how we actually should be living. We should be going into the autumn, winter at our peak weight. Fatten up in that kind of period and then coming out of it a little bit leaner, but we just want to be the same weight all the time.
I heard a very interesting argument. When you get very old, it's better or healthier to be fatter than it is to be thinner.
Oh, yes.
Is that correct?
Oh, yeah, hugely so. Yeah, there are studies that will show that. Yeah, I looked at one, within the last couple of years, there was something on BMI and longevity. And the absolute worst group to be in is underweight. And then it's sort of normal, particularly low end of normal. You don't want to be obese because that's an indication of probably other things. Might be metabolic disease, type 2 diabetes, which is going to impact heart health and be an increased risk for other chronic conditions. But you do not want to be underweight because you're going to get something when you're older and you've got nothing to fall back on. So you get pneumonia, you get a flu that sort of becomes a bit more serious and develops into pneumonia, and you're going to lose weight quite rapidly because you're going to be quite ill. You're not going to feel like eating. Your body's going to be fighting the illness like crazy, using up more energy than it normally does. My mum developed appendicitis in her 70s, was carrying a reasonable amount at the time, probably 20 pounds. Lost it almost all in a couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. because her appendix had kind of become problematic and attached to a bit of the stomach, and it was a complex operation, and lucky to still be here and all the rest of it. Had she not had, a good few pounds to fall back on, imagine if she's sort of 110 pounds or something at 5'2" and then losing 20 pounds. She's in serious territory. You then frail, and you've got other complications that go with that frailty. So definitely, it's difficult. This is just, so for example, for me, this is my natural weight. I'm wondering, it's been my natural weight for 30 years. Is there any point at which I am just going to start putting on weight? And if not, I start following my own advice, start mixing, trying to get the fats and carbs in to quite deliberately put on more weight, when I start heading towards mum's age or whatever.
Does that apply also to being very muscular?
That is a good question, actually. I know sarcopenia is not helpful. So I know you need a certain amount of muscle. And so long as he's not done anything crazy along the way, and he was Mr. Universe, so I have to assume he was drug tested and wasn't taking steroids and performance enhancing drugs and that kind of thing, so he's not done anything too bad, then I would say preservation of as much of the muscle that you've built up over life as you can preserve is going to be a good thing. Now, not least because one of the most dangerous things as you get older is to fall. And when I used to do some conferences with CrossFit and speak at their conferences, I was really impressed with the work that they were doing with elderly people. So they would have classes, particularly with elderly people, where the goal of the class was not that you win the CrossFit Games, but that you could get up off the floor. You could get out of a chair. So you have to imagine the scenario that you've fallen and you've broken an arm and you're 75, 80, 85, 90. Can you still get up off the floor or get to somewhere where you could actually get to the phone or get to the alarm or to be able to alert somebody in some way such that you weren't just left there for a long period of time with a broken limb? So one exercise in the class might be, right, you've broken your right arm. How can you use your legs and your elbows and your other arm to get you up? You've broken your leg. Can you do the same? Getting out of the chair. You're looking at older people and they get to the point that just using the arms to push themselves up, or using, not using the arms, keep your arms folded and just using your legs to lift up or whatever, that becomes problematic. So, and just not falling in the first place. A good skeleton, a good sort of bone structure, good muscles on that bone structure, good solid sort of awareness of your body and your body strength and your position of your body in the environment around you, not being clumsy, all the rest of it. Those are life-changing things. The number of times a fall is the beginning of the end for an older person. You must have heard it. We all know someone. My uncle had a fall in a McDonald's in Toronto in Canada. Barely a few weeks later he was gone. He's in hospital for the problems of the fall, then he gets an infection, then the complications of the infection, then suddenly I don't have this lovely uncle anymore. Bonkers.
I interviewed a former powerlifter. He gives the absolute worst dietary advice, but he's not there to help with your diet. He's there to help you pick up weight so that you can, lift heavy weights. I think he was recommending like 5 liters of milk per day. But what he did say, and I've never forgotten, he said he doesn't want to get to the age of 85, 90 years old and require a walking stick.
I'm not a huge fan of extreme exercise. So the people doing Ironman and a marathon and then a 50k bike ride, I can't even remember what the Ironman is. I just see those guys, particularly the ones who've been carb loading, and we know some of them in our world. You've mentioned one of them in this podcast. They end up with type 2 diabetes because they've been carb loading this extreme exercise for a very long period of time. I know quite a few extreme exercises, and I was interviewed on a podcast by one just last week, where they don't just end up with type 2 diabetes, they end up with heart bypass or heart surgery stents. And we're not talking at older age either. I know a few people in their early 50s who've ended up having major heart surgery, who've been running marathons for the last sort of 20 to 30 years. So I think there's definitely a balance in exercise. I don't think it's extreme exercise. It's definitely not being sedentary, and it's definitely doing something weight bearing so that you're protecting your muscle, which is also protecting your skeleton.
That's where I was leading to. So a combination of muscle and a bit of fat is very helpful for when you're old one day.
Yeah, it is. But you're super young, so don't worry about it.
No, but does that apply to women also?
Yeah, it's across the board, yeah. And like my mum, as I say, if she didn't have the 20 pounds, she probably wouldn't be here now. And there was a recent awards ceremony, and, you know, I hate that whole parade and looking at all those women thinking, how long did that take you to get the body and to get the personal trainer and to do the diet and to get the face and to get the hair and to get the Botox and to get the dress and, you know, get the pose and all the rest of it. Like, surely you could have done something better with all of that time than preening for that one moment when you have the photograph and then it's, you know, blown up all the way around the world. But I think the really noticeable thing about this year's awards ceremony, and we haven't even had the Oscars yet, we're having the warm-ups, relative to some of the other years, is just how much thinner and thinner and thinner the women are getting, and they're not all in their 20s either now. So, you know, I don't want to name any names, but a couple of actresses who are now in their 60s who were just looking so thin. And it's like, you know, what did Courtney Cox from Friends famously say? You know, there comes a day when you've got to sacrifice your butt for your face or something. You know, you're going to have to put on a bit more weight there to...
She looks terrible.
I know, but I mean, maybe she knew that that's what you should be doing, but she hasn't gone and done it yet. They all looked, you know, they looked skeletal. It's almost like women are not allowed to take up any space in this world. It's like the guys are supposed to look like Arnie and take up as much space as possible, and the women are supposed to look like sticks and not take... You know, it's quite euphemistic for sort of men and women in the world and our roles generally. It's like, I want next year, I want all the women to get together and say, right, are we agreed, girls? We're just not doing this. None of us are going to do the diet. None of us are going to do the personal training. We're not going to do the Botox. We're not going to do the fake tan. We're not going to get the hair, the makeup, the Dior dress or whatever. We're going to turn up in our favourite outfit that makes us feel the most comfy, the most happy, and we're going to wash our hair and we're going to look nice and we're going to smile and just look natural or whatever, and just like blow all the photographers away. Wouldn't that be great? You don't look that great. You don't look that healthy. You know, why is the world talking about Sydney Sweeney at the moment? Because she looks like a real woman. She's not looking skeletal. I know she's very young, and I hope she sticks with this kind of, I've got curves and get over it. You know, I'm a real woman. You know, I really hope she doesn't ever just follow all the rest of them and go stick in sex. Is
she the one who became famous because of that I've got good genes ad or something?
Yeah, and upset everyone, which I like her straight out, because it was just so anti-woke, and all the woke were going nuts, going, oh, it's so, I can't, you know, exploitative or whatever. It's so sort of 1980s, you know, and isn't it terrible? It's like, it's a woman and she looks great in jeans, and she's a model. It's her job she's an actress as well, but, you know, it's her job to sell jeans. Good job. You just sold loads of jeans. And let women be whatever they want to be. Stop judging them, pigeonholing them.
I think it was Tim Noakes years ago who said to me, the purpose of eating low carb diet and basically eating healthy is not to lose weight, but it's to get your body to its default weight.
And I think it does. I think it does, actually. Yeah, I mean, it certainly gets it to a natural weight. It gets you to a natural hunger. You don't feel hungry. It's kind of almost like being on those fat jabs, but you're not on those fat jabs. So when people sort of say, oh, the food noise has gone, it's like, I haven't had food noise for 20 years. You know, if you eat meat, fish, eggs, dairy, veg, salad, a few berries or whatever, dark chocolate, red wine, you don't get food noise. You get food noise when you start having Krispy Kreme donuts. You know, they are the crack cocaine of the fake food world. You know, if there's a lot in front of you, I challenge you just to have one. It's all just done deliberately. So all of that can go, and then, your body is just, it will tell you when you're hungry, And there's days when I'm thinking, oh, it's 3:00 and, do you know, I just feel like I need something, and I'll just go and get a chunk of cheese, and then I'm just fine for another couple of hours. I just listen to my body, and it tells me what I need when I want it.
How bad for you is pizza?
Once in a while, probably not that bad. If it's your own pizza, I dated somebody once who used to make pizza, and it was actually really nice. So he used to make his own dough base, and it was a sort of wholemeal flour dough base. I think he thought, wholemeal bread is better than white bread kind of thing. So it was a wholemeal flour dough base, and there was nothing unusual in it. It was just kind of flour and sort of oil and whatever else, and then he'd put natural tomatoes on it, and he'd put cheese on it, and mushrooms maybe or something, kind of build it up. And because it's that fat carb combo, you've got the cheese on the bread, you've got that carb combo, it's delicious. And if you can get the crispy crust, and if you like thick crust or thin crust, if you get it just how you like it, it is that fat carb combo, so it's just absolutely delicious and fantastic. Every now and again, it's not going to do you any harm. If you start feeling you're craving it and you want it every night, you want to come back from having it. Anything that you start craving, you just got to say, I need to pare back from that, because I don't want to go to that place where I actually feel addicted to that substance. So just recognise it and then step back from it.
For me, pizza is a really good quality heartburn.
Okay, because you're back in that sort of carb thing. You're feeding the bad guys. Candida, if we're back to that sort of the most bad of the bad guys, Candida really does love bread. Really loves bread.
If you're going to get heartburn, at least get it from something really good like pizza.
Something that you like, yeah. And do you know what? I mean, if you get into this habit of taking apple cider vinegar on a regular basis and taking
I'm going to go have that.
Yeah, and not doing the opposite, not trying to do the antacids and the omeprazoles and that kind of thing. If you stop all of that, that's like step one. Step two, start doing the opposite. And you might well be able to get to the point that you're enjoying pizza and not getting any reaction to it.
Well, I'm going to go have now after we've recorded, because I had some banana bread earlier. And the only reason why I had banana bread is because we've got a little boy and we had bananas. And so my wife made a banana bread to use up the remaining bananas. And it is delicious.
But you don't have to have it. If it's causing you problems, then you need to
but
leave it.
But it was very nice.
Well, yeah, and stuff that is bad for us is very nice. We're back to that.
Yes.
What do you want to achieve, and what are you prepared to do to achieve it?
But you also like banana bread, don't you?
Do you know, I can't remember when I've last had banana bread or whatever.
Really?
Yeah.
I find bananas are... I find they are triggers for heartburn.
Yeah, they're very high in glucose. Very high. I mean, a medium, large size banana or something. You got 20 grams minimum carbohydrate there. Fruit always has fructose and glucose, and the glucose is the one that goes into the bloodstream. Bananas have got more glucose than fructose, but they're all still, not too far away from 50-50 kind of thing. But remember, you've got a teaspoon of glucose in your entire bloodstream at any one time, which is just 4 grams. So let's say your banana is 10 grams of glucose. It's probably going to be more. You just chucked into the bloodstream more than double what it had, and it was quite happy, more than double what it needed. And it's just then got to call upon the pancreas to release insulin to get the sugar out of the bloodstream. Then it gets stored away, and then you need it for energy, and it starts bringing it back. And then you might crave another banana because it kind of didn't quite get your glucose back to where you wanted it to be. Maybe it dipped a little bit low, and then you want another piece of banana bread. Yeah, that's why when we start eating carbs, we find it quite difficult to stop, because getting back to that perfect level where the glucose is just where the body wants it to be is actually quite tricky when you start eating glucose. It's a lot easier when you just leave it to the body to use the pancreas to put insulin and glucagon to get that level right.
In my defense, I don't eat any fruit though.
Okay, but banana bread.
So therefore I'm going to take bananas and bread and I'm going to have them together.
Going to put them together. Yeah.
But I'll balance it out because I'm going to make meatballs tonight.
Okay. Yeah, meatballs are good. Meatballs especially. I mean, presumably with mince from the butcher or something. Yeah, that's good actually, because it's
sure.
not. People in our world eat steak all the time, a bit too often, and you want to be eating other bits of the animal as well. So mince is actually really good because it's actually mixed up a lot
pork
of bits.
mince also. Yeah,
Okay,
pork mince
great.
also.
Yeah.
And you use egg to keep it together.
Okay.
No, it's very nice.
Yeah, that's how Andy makes burgers. He uses beef mince because cows help the planet. Pigs, not quite so much.
So my good friend Farmer Angus, who I think you might know, he's got he's got a farm not too far away from me, and he's got some of the best raised grass-fed cattle. Incredible quality. But it's slightly more premium. But as he argues, is it actually more premium?
Yeah, because it's doing another job, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
Looking after the topsoil, looking after the planet. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, if meat is better quality, then you're consuming better quality nutrition also.
Yeah.
So
I'm not interested in American
Yeah.
meat, which is from cattle that are in concrete sheds being fed soy, and they should be out grazing the land. It's not like you haven't got a lot of land over there. Just use it better. Put the cows out of the sheds, grazing in the fields.
All right, Zoe, I get your newsletter every week, and you're currently doing a series on how to analyze a paper.
How to read a paper, yeah. How to do what I do, basically. Yeah. And then you can do it, and then you don't need me. Actually, I'm hoping you still do need me, because otherwise I can't afford steak. So please, hopefully still just say, no, okay, I know how to do it now, but I'll just leave it to her and give her like $1 a week or whatever it is. It's not so much, hopefully.
So how can my audience read your newsletter and follow
read my
your work?
stuff? Yeah. So on X, I'm just at Zoë Harcombe, which is, I see my first name is just up on the screen, and it's just second name Harcombe. And my website is zoeharcombe.com, and there's quite a lot on OpenView. I think I've even got a tag saying OpenView or Freeview or something. So if you don't want to pay anything, then just go and read the OpenView stuff.
Quickly, Zoe, is there a little thing on the E? Is it just ZOE?
Yeah, it's ZOE they call it an umlaut on the E, and it's Greek. It's a Greek name, means life. I think if you don't have the E, the umlaut on the E, I think it's Zoe, or it can be pronounced Zoe. I know.
Well, the Americans do it like that.
Yeah. They do, don't they? They say Zoe or Zoes or, whatever.
Anyway, on that note, Zoë Harcombe, thank you for joining me in the trenches.
Thank you for having me.